Hi, everyone. Welcome to AI from the Front Lines. I'm Bina Amanat. I lead our global Deloitte AI Institute. And today I'm joined by Connor Grennan. Connor, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Connor, I'm very curious to hear in your conversations, you speak to a number of organizations. What are you seeing companies struggling with most today with AI?
I think the biggest thing is just sheer AI adoption. I don't think the problem is really in the tools. I think AI is already extremely powerful, as you all know very well. I think the biggest thing that I see is just organizations trying to get their entire workforce using this. There's this huge kind of almost like asymmetry between the people who are using it really well, like the power users, and then people who are, I don't want to say afraid to, sometimes they just can't figure it out. Sometimes they just don't know what to use it for, et cetera. And there's this giant disconnect where the folks who are using it really well are trying to get people to use it, but they're just not. And so that is by far the biggest problem I see.
AI literacy becomes so crucial. How do you see companies adopting AI literacy? What are some of the programs that you're seeing in this space?
Yeah, the programs are sort of all over the place because every program that's trying to teach AI literacy, I think they all fall down a little bit. And the reason for that, I find anyway, is that we're trying to teach AI, and I kind of put that in air quotes, teach
Yeah.
AI in a very outdated way. We're sort of, it's kind of like what you were referring to. We're sort of treating this like a normal technology, but it doesn't act anything like a
Right.
normal technology. And what
Right.
you guys do at Deloitte is sort of like on the right path, which is it's all about change management. And it's funny that you mentioned the industries, because in the beginning of doing this, I don't know what you guys found, but when I was looking for this, I kept looking for either the companies that were doing it really well, and then what patterns I could find. And, you know, a lot of times this sort of corresponds to like a digital maturity scale. And so there's no pattern that I've been able to discern because, as it turns out, I don't think there is a pattern. I think that the main driver here is that we have to understand that this is a behavioral shift rather than just a tool that some companies pick up and some companies don't. And that has been the biggest stumbling block I've seen across pretty much everyone.
You hit on something so important, right? The behavioral shift or culture. And we did a survey late last year and came out AI as a technology moves at its own pace, but the adoption AI moves at the pace of the culture or change management that is within the organization. So how do you go about changing that culture towards adopting this broader, new technology?
So you know that changing culture is so hard, and
Yeah.
especially with this when we're talking about changing behavior. And so what I mean by that really is that we keep thinking that AI is something you have to learn when it's something you have to do, right? So I think of it much more akin to a treadmill than learning Excel. And the brain loves these learning curves. It's very easy. Changing behavior is very hard, like changing culture is very hard. It really maps to, I think, a couple of things. Number one is, do you have a strong like learning culture in place? And you've worked with a lot of organizations and you know which ones have the learning cultures, right? And those learning cultures tend to be the ones that have a little more vulnerability from leadership, a little more psychological safety throughout the organization. The other thing that I found so interesting is that the single biggest driver for AI adoption, I've seen anyway, is does your CEO and senior leadership team actually use it? That is the biggest driver. And the reason is, the reason that I found is, once they understand how it can apply to everything in your life, then they start understanding how it can apply to every role.
So there are a number of myths about AI as well floating around, right? From, AI is going to take away jobs to, humans and AI working together. If you had to leave our audience with one piece of advice or one myth dispelling thought, what's the one piece of advice you?
I think the first thing we do, and I think best practice for leadership, is to message that, hey, look, I totally get it. But the message that comes right on top of that, and it's true, this is not just lip service, is to say, but the important part is not AI, it's you. AI is great at producing content. What it's not great at doing is deciding whether that's good content or not good content, right? And so the entire point is that you need quality control above everything else. And so what I tell leaders to say to their people, en masse, is to say, we brought you into this company because you drive value for this company. Forget AI for a second. You drive value. You understand what good looks like. You understand what winning looks like. You understand how to innovate. You just don't have the time. Most importantly, you have to understand that it's your brain that is the most valuable thing in the age of AI because it's you who's going to determine quality, steer this thing in the right direction. In the same way, having a great manager can work with a team this is now, you are the new manager. This is your new team. And it can't replace you
Yes.
because if you do that, we'll just come out with tons of AI slop instead of a really accelerated version of what we're already doing.
Awesome. Kannan, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. Take care.